Lakewood P-25 compared to Lakewood P-25. What? Yeah. I now possess not only one, but two Lakewood P-25s. I should say we, because it's Eddie and I. So those of you who know the channel know I've had this one. I've told the story over and over again. I'll say it really quickly again. I have owned this brand new. I remember when I learned that these were out there. I saw them first in the 90s when I was in college. I saw one in a classroom and I was like, what is that? It's like, that doesn't look old, but it does. Because, you know, it's gray, not blue. And in the 90s, you're not just Googling Lakewood metal box fan. It just like didn't exist, right? So I learned about it, and then later in the 2000s, I was keeping an eye on it. I could see online you can get them from Ace Hardware. You could get them from eBay, like an eBay seller, so you can get them brand new. I would go to an eBay seller, and there would be like 10 available, whatever. So I was watching them, and then I learned that they were being discontinued. So I went ahead and bought one. So I believe the last year for these was 07, and maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong. And I think I got mine in 08, I think. So it was like, if you will, technically new old stock. And I told myself I will never use it because they likely will never make something like this ever again. Closest thing ultimately that came out that is like this is the metal bladed and Dayton branded Lasco, which is well documented on this channel as well. But there's something special about this because they basically pulled the P-25 out of mothballs, if you will, the cabinet, because by then they stopped making cabinets this large. When they got to the third gen of the 223s, they had stopped, right? So it was really cool that they went into the archives, pulled it out. They probably had the equipment, the machine tools, whatever, however you do it, the manufacturer, and they went for it, right? Motors changed over the years, of course. These oval blades were back, oil ports were back. We were in business. So being that this is so rare, I felt, because there was, once the new one sold out, I just never, ever to this day have seen one on eBay. Have not. There's a couple of YouTubers out there, occasionally one pops up in the video, but usually now at this point, all those videos are really old. So I have this and I cherish it, and it's fun to be able to share it with you guys, because before it would just sit in a box, and I think at one point until I started the channel, this sat in a box for over 10 years. I didn't touch it, I just left it. All right, that being said, how this came about. So I still occasionally will do a search on eBay, and I'll just do Lakewood P-25, and usually P-23s come up, and then 223s come up, and you know, and some of the variants of the 23s, you know, that were rebranded pop up, and you know, they're really cool. And if money grew on trees, I would get them. My point being is the older, from the 70s variants of the 2.3s are more plentiful than the 90s and the early 2000s 2.5s. It's just what it is. There's just more of the older ones out there. So this one showed up on Marketplace, and I don't even remember what happened. It might have been a case, because I've told other stories with other fans, where someone in one of the Facebook groups will post like a fan from Marketplace, and like, oh, if anyone lives in the, for example, Illinois area, this is out there, someone should grab it, which is really cool. And I've had experiences where I've reached out to the seller and say, hey, I'm happy to pay for shipping materials and shipping. I'm a collector. If you usually say you're a collector, people are accommodating because it's a hobby, and they know you'll probably pay. So that's kind of what happened with this. Some guy had it in a pretty good video, some good pictures, some good pictures. They had it in a listing. They did put it running in the video, and it looked pretty good. So I was like, it doesn't look perfect, so I don't mind if I get my hands on it and then actually use it, versus the other one where it just sits. So the things I point out in the checkout video with this thing is the grill is cracked on the edges. So what they did was they drilled some holes that kind of piece it back together. Okay, so be it. Look at this handle. This I look at the top here. It reminds me kind of an Air King or it's really the same handle as a 3733. It is functional, but these fans are so heavy. I don't totally trust it because you can pop it out. It's kind of popped out on me. We haven't serviced or oiled it yet, but here it is. I'm very happy. Now, why are you doing this comparison video? They're the same fan except for one's dirty and one's like brand new. The reason I'm doing this video is because those of you who know, and which a lot of you do know, and will correct me and school me, which is totally fine. That's why we do these. The motors are different. During the lifespan, the run of these from the 90s to the middle 2000s-ish, they changed over the motor. And while I'll say both of them are great, people tend to say, people who really know, that the earlier ones have the better motor. And I didn't know from the pictures in the video which this had. It was a P-25, that's all I needed to hear. So I acquired it, and it's an earlier one, which is even cooler to me because now I kind of have one of each variant of when they ran these. So what we'll do is flip it around. This really, every time I pick it up, it's like picking up a new fan. It just has that. I mean, we did put a coat of wax on it recently, but it just has that newness feel to it. This, not so much. Cord, like you can see the difference in the cords. These were identical cords at one point. This one still has its memory from being bound up. This is filthy dirty. Now look at these motors. That's the difference. And I will admit my ignorance. Some of the motors I know the names of, like Macmillan motors, whatever, Marco motors. But you guys out there are the experts, right? So this motor had been the motor that they, I believe, used in the 3rd gen, 2nd gen, 1st gen, etc. Correct me if I'm wrong with that statement. It won't insult me or upset me. Then this motor came around, which replaced, and similar but different. Everyone always told me this is the better motor, and just from nostalgia purposes, like I would agree, but from a performance and longevity, I don't know, and I will never know because I am not going to run this for hours on end to figure out which one will last longer. This motor, they both have oil ports, which I always found interesting is the opening on these motors were always a little bit bigger for the oil ports, but still very effective. And I think when they revised the 200i, and I did a comparison of this with the 200i, when they changed the cabinet color to this gray, I believe they also put that motor in there, just maybe a slightly different variant. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe something with the capacitor. Yeah, because the capacitor sits right there. One's a shaded pole, I believe. Okay. So, other than that, these things are identical. And I'm not counting this because it would have come with the same handle. Identical. Except one has a lot of hours on it. One has maybe a half hour on it, if that. So we will do a video on this one, a service video at some point, which will be fun because we'll see how bright and shiny we can get those blades. So now the fun part, we're just gonna compare them, right? So let's start with low and listen to startup sounds and whatnot. So I'll be quiet. So here's the new one. Some of the best sounds ever. You can just hear the air chopping with the metal blades. Sounds better than the HV Lasco HV box fans. All right. Low here. I think it sounds a little different. Still throws off a lot of air, even though it's really quiet. Let's do medium. What would be interesting, what would be very interesting is to compare the earlier 2.5 to the 2.3 we have. I've done comparisons with this one. Maybe that's on the horizon. Medium. This definitely sounds louder. It feels like it's throwing more air, but it also has way less hours on it, as we talked about. We get this one cleaned up and oiled. But this one definitely has that 60s metallic metal sound. I love it. All right, let's just go right to high, actually. And this will like make that sound. Yeah. I mean, how are these not cool? They're the coolest thing. If you're in the fans, they're so awesome. There's less metallic sound with the older one. I don't know if that has to do with the motor, because they're the same blades, or if it has to do with just it needing service. I hear a little rattle in there somewhere. I don't know what that is. What is the sound of the blades coming off? So I am probably the only one on the planet. We are probably the only ones on the planet that has not only one, but two P-25s. The only thing I can think of is some school somewhere still runs these, and they have a few like in classrooms or the janitor's area or whatever. I could see that, and hopefully those get in the collector's hands before the dumpster at some point in time, because people just tend to run these and run them until there's no run left, and that's it. And then I will even double down and say, if I brought out the two Daytons and the metal bladed Lasco, you add that combination with the two of these, I'm probably the only one in our collector community with these. And I'm not saying to be braggadocious. I'm just saying I don't know where else you would find these, is the whole point. And the fact, not only do I have one, but I have multiples. I am not bragging. I am saying I am extremely lucky and extremely thankful to all of you who point these out in the groups and the comments and whatnot. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I wouldn't have these if it weren't for you guys. So special thanks. So if you have any video requests for these, let me know. Again, I think aside from doing a video on servicing this one, I think it will be interesting to compare this to a P23. I've done the comparison with the newer one to the 2.3, so that could be one coming. All right, well, let me know what you think. Comment, like, subscribe, and we will we'll go from there, and we'll see you next time. But before we go, we're going to leave you with this.